Hello everyone, welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If you're new here, this is the place where we take the loudest headlines, slow them down, and tell one clear, text-to-speech, friendly story. Please hit like, subscribe, and tap join if you enjoy deep dives done with care. Today, we're unpacking a revelation that rewired the conversation around a beloved actor and the relationship many thought was unshakable. Yes, this episode is about Barış Baktaş and Gülüm Baktaş, the statement that began with gratitude and ended with a line nobody expected, "My heart has found a new direction." Let's begin with the post itself because that is where every rumor, comment, and think piece traces its origin. It was short, measured, and unmistakably deliberate. No hashtags. No soundtrack. No carousel of curated photos. Just a clean paragraph acknowledging a shared history, honoring what had been good, and drawing a careful boundary around what could no longer continue. He didn't point a finger, didn't dramatize, didn't invite debate. He wrote as someone who had already wrestled with the decision in private and had now decided to speak simply in public. If you were online during the first hour after it went live, you know how fast the reaction fractured into camps. Some followers responded with uncomplicated kindness, "We're with you, thank you for your honesty." Others immediately opened their detective kits, timestamps, archived stories, zoomed-in reflections in restaurant windows. A small, louder group insisted that an admission like this must hide a scandal. No one's heart changes without a cause. But if you've watched public lives for long enough, you know the truth tends to be less cinematic and more human. Hearts don't flip like switches. They drift, stall, revive, drift again, and finally tell the truth when pretending becomes heavier than honesty. And then there is Gülüm Baktaş. If silence has a shape, hers does. Steady, self-possessed, uninterested in the staged momentum of outrage. She did not post a black screen, did not subtweet, did not share a poem that functions as a weapon. She did what strong people do when private matters become public weather. She moved quietly, kept the important things off the record, and relied on her closest circle to shield the rest. It is tempting, especially online, to read silence as a confession or a strategy. Sometimes it is neither. Sometimes it is simply the last intact room you can protect. Still, a statement like Barış's produces an ecosystem of questions. When did the change begin? Friends recall a season of polite distance, where shared spaces were navigated with caution rather than warmth. There were weeks of heavy schedules, location shoots that stretched late, work trips that extended by a day, interviews that asked for personal anecdotes when professional ones would have done. In one long-form conversation about craft, Barış used a phrase that now reads like foreshadowing, seasonal lives. He spoke about how love, like work, demands revision, how holding on sometimes becomes a way of refusing to grow. At the time it sounded philosophical. In hindsight, it sounds like a man preparing to speak plainly. Was there someone else? That is the question the internet wants answered most, and the question that public figures are least likely to answer well. Barış did not name anyone in his message. He did not hint, nudge, or perform coyness. He made one admission and protected everyone around it. That doesn't stop speculation from stretching across group chats and comment threads, but it does set a tone. This will not be a public trial. And if there is a new chapter forming in his life, it is chosen to start with discretion, not theater. Let's talk about the line that ignited the most debates. "My heart has found a new direction, and I must follow it." Some heard selfishness in the sentence, others heard relief. But read it closely and you'll see two unglamorous virtues often missing from celebrity statements: ownership and restraint. Ownership, because he does not outsource the change to circumstances, fate, or the other person. Restraint, because he allows space for everyone involved to keep their dignity. In a culture that runs on blame and spectacle, that is rarer than it should be. What does this mean for work, the place where many of you first met Barış and where he has always returned when life got loud? Early reports from sets suggest a familiar pattern. He shows up prepared, avoids interviews that demand confessional energy, and redirects questions toward the characters rather than his personal history. Directors like actors who can carry private storms without turning a production into a weather map. Crew members notice the small signs of professionalism: clean takes, quiet apologies when a mark is missed, the unshowy courtesy of staying through lighting adjustments even when a stand-in could technically do it. And what of Gülüm moving forward? People who have worked with her describe a person who invests deeply in process, whether it's a creative project, a cause, or a home. That kind of person does not become smaller after a breakup, they become more precise. Expect to see less of her for a while, and then, when she returns, expect substance. Not a tell-all, not a weaponized brand pivot, substance. If you need a script for how to speak about her online, here's one that costs nothing and pays back respect. May she have space to heal, to rebuild, and to choose when and how she speaks, if at all. Now, let's address the hardest question kindly: is a breakup a failure? Not always. Sometimes it is an act of mercy, for the present and for the future. The courage to leave is often the same courage required to stay, it simply points in a different direction. The healthiest reading of this moment is the one that neither romanticizes pain nor demonizes change. Two people shared a meaningful season. That season ended. The most mature thing each can do now is protect what was good while releasing what cannot be good anymore. Because this is Turkish Spotlight Secrets, we also look at the media machinery that powers these narratives. Expect outlets to run with mystery love angles. Expect armchair analysts to cross-reference dates and speculate about overlaps that may never have existed. Expect a wave of alleged insiders who wouldn't recognize the real insiders on a sidewalk. You can opt out of that cycle. It's okay to be curious, it's better to be humane. If you care about the people and not just the plot, you'll find that curiosity doesn't have to become intrusion. Here's a practical guide for fans who want to support without trespassing. Respond without recruiting. You don't need to tag family, colleagues, or old co-stars to force reactions. Share words, not wounds. If you must quote the statement itself. Don't attach unverified screenshots. Let craft be the center. Celebrate performances, not private guesses. It keeps the conversation clean. Accept silence as an answer. A lack of comment is not a challenge to dig deeper, it's a request to stop. Will Barış Baktaş and Gülüm Baktaş ever speak jointly about this? Possibly not. Co-statements are tidy, and real life rarely is. What is more likely is a gradual recalibration, public appearances that avoid overlap, interviews that close certain doors politely, a mutual willingness to keep each other's names out of narratives that no longer belong to both. That is not coldness, that is care, expressed at a distance. There is a softer angle here that is easy to miss in the noise: gratitude. Barış's post began with it for a reason. Gratitude is not a performance you put on to seem gracious, it's an acknowledgement that even endings are built out of meaningful beginnings, honest middles, and work that cannot be erased by a final chapter. An adult goodbye honors the full arc. Today's story does that. Before we close, a word about hope, the least fashionable yet most necessary thing in these situations. Hope is not the fantasy that everything will return to the way it was. Hope is the quiet belief that everyone involved can move forward with integrity, that art can transmute upheaval into something generous, and that audiences can learn to be supporters rather than spectators of pain. If you've watched long enough, you've seen this happen. Private storms become better performances, wiser interviews, kinder boundaries. That is the path worth rooting for. If this breakdown helped you replace rumor fatigue with clarity, please like the video, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, and ring the bell so you never miss future deep dives. In the comments, tell me, can a public figure announce a change of heart without turning their life into a referendum? What does a respectful reveal look like to you? Keep it considerate, we moderate for dignity as much as we do for accuracy. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye.